Wes,
Yes.
thank you for joining us here. We're here in Nashville, Ludi's fall company meeting 25. So appreciate you joining us here. Wes, maybe just do a brief introduction, kind of where you work and the services that you provide.
I'm a CPA. I'm a partner in Kassouf Co. We're a large local firm based out of Birmingham, but we do work all over the country. And I am the director over the healthcare division. And we're 6 years away from our 100th anniversary. So one of our goals by 2031 is to be doing consulting projects in all 50 states. So we're really excited to be up here today. Ludi's got a great product. Just think it's fabulous and great to catch up with a lot of friends that I have in the company.
Well, appreciate having here. Being a CPA, I kind of have a soft spot for regional CPA firms. That's kind of how I started my career off. So I know you do a lot of work in physician compensation, design, and strategy work. Is there maybe a couple specialties that you're getting a couple more phone calls on right now, or maybe causing some headaches for some folks?
The one that we're getting the most phone calls on is primary care and APPs, just because there's a lot of incentive-based money out there, both for large employers and for large private practices. And so we're really designing and organizing what is true value data versus just data, and how do we continue to keep the providers incentivized. Primary care is a tough specialty because of that and because of just the sheer demand. We are woefully understaffed in primary care across the country, and our population is aging, which is requiring a bigger demand in care. So you've got high volume demand, low providers, and insurance companies are trying to make it a little bit more palatable for those guys, because historically they've been the lowest paid providers in the food chain, and they're not any longer. So that specialty is really challenging. The other specialties other than primary care, surgical base, the ologies, we're having a really big conflict between services that are provided in a hospital facility versus a diagnostic center or a freestanding ASC. The payers are making it very competitive in that they'll reimburse us more money on a case if we do it outside the walls of the hospital, because the hospital rates are higher. And so that creates some conflict between the hospital and the providers. So we're trying to come up with a balancing act with keeping the CEOs and CFOs at the hospitals happy, while the providers, it's just too much money for them to turn down to go and pursue it in an outside facility.
Do you see any changes with the compensation models? Maybe are the hospitals allowing equity ownership in ASCs and the structures there to kind of maybe mitigate and maybe be competitive in that type of environment?
That's a great question. That is the primary solution that we're going. We call it creating stickiness, where we can have the hospital own 51% of the ASC and the doctors own 49%. The hospitals can typically bring a better contract than just the independent physician-run ASCs. The insurance companies like it because we're still moving it out of the hospitals, so the power higher case rates. So it's a more common joint venture arrangement that we're doing that keeps the employers, the hospitals, happy.
Are you seeing that type of model too? You talk about stickiness. I think about the long-term impact of non-competes and maybe the need to develop kind of these types of elements that create equity that way. Do you see anything with like other types of entities besides ASCs or maybe real estate as well?
Yeah, you carve out all the real estate separately and you make that a real estate example. It's kind of like the old story in the McDonald's movie is you don't have a hamburger joint, you have a real estate company. It's the same thing with the ASC development. Yes, we have an ASC, but there's only so much land. And if you buy a piece of property, put an ASC on it, and you let the physicians be an owner in it, and you're paying rent for that building, they're getting rental income off of that because they're part owners in the building. It makes it harder for them to just pull up and move to another location.
Do you see any changes with maybe deferred compensation plans as well for retirement plans, maybe cash balance? Any desire? I know it's a little bit harder to do that in an employed model, but maybe some of those independent groups can still tackle those strategies.
In the big systems, we still have the 457 plans, which are non-qualified, deferred comp type arrangements, which not all of them do it, but a lot of them have started, which is a form of deferred comp or long-term benefit. The private groups, the large private groups, say more than 25 providers in a group. Once we know the average compensation per provider is over a dollar amount, most markets we say 700,000, then anything over that, you kind of get into what people call discretionary income. When we have a group that's consistently hitting discretionary income, they're a good candidate for a cash balance plan or some other type of deferred comp arrangement. We have to be careful. The IRS making deferred comp arrangements more difficult to put in place and not recognize that income as taxable in the year that the deferred comp agreement is made. And so we have to jump through the right type of structure with the providers. But yeah, it's another model that we're working with. Probably where we're spending more time is on designing signing bonuses and stipends, where we're finding candidates that want to move to rural USA because their family's from there and they're in their second year of residency. We've gone 2-3 year stipend arrangements in exchange for a 5-year commitment for that provider to come to this rural market to work. That's
I think we definitely see that too on the pay element side, a lot more recruitment incentives, those resident and fellowship stipends, those student loan repayments, those relocations. I think those present a lot of administrative burdens because you just hit it. You're paying them now, but there's a work commitment for a period of time.
Right.
And sometimes those commitments don't happen for whatever reason. And then you have to possibly reclaim that money.
Yeah, you do. And that's just, what you have to do. And, I would say out of the 150 that I did the last 3 years, we've probably only had 10 that have ever come back to repayment type situations. So it's 95% of the time the commitment's there, and the providers usually sign up for that deal because there's a personal attachment to that market or region. It's just easy for us to lock them up really young in the residency programs. The other interesting part of what we're seeing, insurance companies that are saying that they're investing in the community, is they're also offering tuition and scholarship reimbursements, particularly in the primary care area, if a provider will go to an underserved HIPSA area and work there for 5 years, the insurance company will pay all of their medical loans, student loans.
That's I think it's just not about compensation. It's about total rewards. Mm-hmm. I think you see a lot of programs developing into advancing the education. Do you see that a lot with nurses, where organizations are willing to commit and provide the education for them to go back and continue to be maybe an NP and advance their careers?
Yeah, nursing and nurse practitioners are a little bit more complicated. The hospitals aren't willing to be much of a financial partner in that scenario right now because from say 2016 to now, hospitals feel like the nurses really push the cost of personnel costs too hard. There's just such a shortage of nurses that the hospitals had no other choice than to pay what the the nurses were demanding. We are seeing a trend where hospitals will say, if you go back and get your NP, we'll pay it, but they're not lining up real fast to do it.
Yeah. They don't want to put the money out and commit to it. If you get it, we'll help you.
They're still upset about the last 5 years where nurses' salaries have gone up, 40, 50%, and reimbursements haven't changed.
Yeah. So, when you're doing this process, you're probably looking at a lot of different market survey data. Is there data that you wish that was available to you in the marketplace right now?
I guess there's always a piece of data that when you're looking for it, you realize you're looking for something unusual. I still think MGMA is a good source of data to put together and it be directional. I think the thing that I encourage any of the organizations, and I know I've talked to people in your organization, we don't want to see that survey data to be a directive. I think we've got to kind of let that survey data, whatever it is, kind of set the boundaries and then run some financial models or financial pro formas under a series of circumstances and adjust up and down from there. Any of the survey data is fraught with how people submitted their data. And the folks that are gathering that survey data are not always scrubbing it to take out information that shouldn't be in there. For example, physician total compensation. Some people that respond, they will include the productive pay, the medical directorship pay, the on-call pay. And when you start trying to do the math between all the different data points, they don't tie together. And so that's why I've always just said it's good to start with any of those survey data and then carve from there. The interesting thing that I find, like with Ludi data, is with the number of providers that you're starting to have enrolled in your product, you have more respondents in your live data than some of the surveys actually collected. So you may not know it, but you may have more information at your fingertips to do your own kind of analytics without having to respond with some of these other smaller survey information.
Certainly, I would agree with that. And certainly for certain specialties and certain situations that you might be able to provide some more color around the circumstances there. So really sound advice, directionally, not a directive. One last question. You're at home with the family. You're relaxing. What do they think that you do all day?
I have a special needs daughter, so she thinks I play with numbers and that I fight with people about numbers all day. She's like, "How was your day? Did y'all agree to your numbers?" My wife readily admits she has no idea what I do because she runs into people at social occasions and we start talking and we walk away and she goes, "I don't know what you do." But at the end of the day, they know I work in healthcare. They know I work with large and small organizations. And I think they know that whenever I'm working on something, I'm trying to do something that's kind of fair to all concerned. Because in the end, I think if you have a winner and a loser, that's not a good business relationship to be in.
Oh. Well, thank you for joining us. Great to hear your thoughts and sharing them with everyone here at Ludi. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.